As Naruto fans, one of the core elements of the story was the big chase of Naruto trying to bring Sasuke back to the Hidden Leaf Village, and eventually Naruto was able to accomplish this goal. But what if this never happened? What if Naruto never got the opportunity to bring Sasuke back to the village because he died during the first battle? How would the Naruto story change? Would things end up for better or would they end up for worse? Join me in today's newest edition of Naruto What If, where we take a look at the Naruto story and the infinitely boundless number of potential timelines where the story plays out differently than the one that we know, and strip away all plot armor to answer the question of what if. In order for this to happen, we must first establish a trigger point, a set period in time where an event occurs and we make a change. For this moment, our best opportunities come either in the form of Naruto chapter 228, where Sasuke, his Chidori, destroyed Naruto's lung, or in Naruto chapter 233, where Naruto versus Sasuke climaxed. In that first chapter, Sasuke didn't purposely go for Naruto's heart. Instead, he went for his lung. And in the second chapter, Sasuke starts out with the initial thrusting jab with his fingers extended, but at the last second, Sasuke is shown purposely folding his fingers to avoid a lethal thrusting jab, which had he been going for the kill, his fingers would have remained outstretched like they were in Naruto chapter 463, where he was attempting to kill the fourth Raikage. Either of these moments, they could have worked, but I purposely want to go with the second scene, the one where Naruto had exhausted himself in battle leading up to this, and in this timeline, Sasuke is just a couple of seconds too slow in folding his fingers, meaning he hits Naruto fully in the heart with this attack, and this kills the young Jinchuuriki right there on the spot. This would lead to our first major change. A 13-year-old Sasuke would awaken his Mangekyo Sharingan at the sight of Naruto's dead body, filled with guilt because at the time, despite Sasuke's words to Naruto, he had no intention of killing him. This would leave Sasuke utterly distraught as he made his way across the border and heading towards Orochimaru's hideout, and Zetsu would know not only was the Nine-Tails Jinchuuriki dead, but Orochimaru now had an asset in Sasuke who is in possession of the Mangekyo Sharingan. This would lead to the Akatsuki having to make a small alteration to their plans to capture the Jinchuuriki and extract the Biju sealed inside of them. The hunt, it would still continue, but they would know that they would have to keep a lookout for any signs of the revival of the Nine-Tails. Also, Kakashi would be in shambles as well, finding the dead body of his student Naruto, recognizing right away that it was the Chidori, a jutsu that Sasuke was taught for the purposes of protecting his friends. Kakashi would be crushed knowing that Sasuke ignored his teachings and killed Naruto anyway. With tears in his eyes, Kakashi would carry the lifeless body of Naruto back to Konoha, which would cause major ripple effects. Shikamaru would take a lot more convincing from his father and Temari to continue being a shinobi, because in this timeline he wouldn't be able to say that nobody died on his first mission as a Chunin. Tsunade too would be very distraught, once again having bet on someone to become Hokage who ended up dying before realizing that dream, and Naruto's own godfather Jiraiya, he would be filled with regrets as well, having to carry the incorrect feeling in his heart that he failed both his student Minato as well as his godson Naruto. Sakura would be utterly destroyed mentally too, having to carry the guilt that comes from being the one who begs Naruto to chase after Sasuke and being unable to assist in any meaningful way. Ultimately, I still see Sakura training to learn medical ninjutsu, if for no other reason than the question of whether or not she had been there on the battlefield, she could have saved Naruto had she known medical ninjutsu. This would also serve as a bit of healing for Tsunade, being able to help Sakura through her own grief while dealing with her own. Meanwhile, in the Sand Village, Gaara, he would still chase his dream of being Kazekage, but he would have a heavier heart knowing that Naruto is now dead. Sasuke's situation, now that becomes even more complicated because A big part of the reason why Tsunade refused to make Sasuke a rogue ninja was at the insistence of Naruto and Sakura wishing for a chance to save Sasuke. However, in this original timeline, that becomes even harder due to the fact that Sasuke, unlike the original timeline, he's now killed a Konoha shinobi, which would make it a lot harder for Tsunade to not have Sasuke listed as a rogue ninja. Not only did he willingly defect from the village to join Orochimaru, but he also killed a Konoha shinobi in Naruto, who was also the jinchuuriki of the Nine Tails. In one action, Konoha, on top of still recovering from the instability that came from the third Hokage's death only a few weeks prior in the timeline, also has to deal with the loss of the Sharingan that Sasuke possessed and the Nine Tails Jinchuriki, which is a huge cripple to their military strength. Not even Tsunade will be able to override the elders on the situation. Sasuke would be in the bingo book. Meanwhile, Danzo would unsuccessfully try to have Tsunade removed as Hokage, but given that the village just had lost the third Hokage and the removal of a fifth Hokage so soon after she took power would be something that the feudal lord would never agree upon. This means that Danzo goes back into his chambers fuming mad at never getting the Hokage position once again. At some point, Kakashi will find himself standing over Minato's grave, apologizing for being unable to protect his son, and spending time at Obito's grave, remarking how he once again lost someone who had the spirit of Obito. The next 2.5 years have passed by in a much different and darker way. Jiraiya would likely be spending time looking into the whereabouts of Orochimaru. Kakashi and Sakura would emerge with a heavier weight on their shoulders that would drive them to become a lot stronger than they were in the original timeline. Sasuke also, by having the Mangekyo Sharingan in his possession, would be stronger by default than he was in the original timeline. This Sasuke would have a 2.5 years worth of training with Orochimaru, plus the curse mark, plus the Mangekyo Sharingan. I do believe that with Orochimaru and Kabuto there, Sasuke won't run blind as quickly as he did in the original timeline, but I still believe he would develop jutsu like Kirin for the purposes of killing Itachi, potentially feeling even more hatred for Itachi due to him feeling guilty for killing Naruto and Sasuke blaming Itachi, even though it wasn't Itachi who killed Naruto. I still believe that Deidara would end up capturing Gaara, but where it gets very interesting is the team that Konoha sends for backup. Team 7, they would now be down 2 members in this timeline due to Naruto being dead and Sasuke being a rogue ninja. Given that Sakura would be a Chunin and Kakashi is a Jonin, I don't believe that Tsunade would grab some random academy graduate to join their team. The same with a random set of Ganin from the village itself, given the stakes of the mission. Instead, I do believe that Danzo would have some strings pulled to have Sai placed on the Team 7. And with no Naruto there, it makes it a lot harder for Sai to walk down that redemption journey. And also, Danzo has more motive because he would clearly want Sasuke killed in this timeline, if for no other reason than to take care of a loose end from the Uchiha massacre, since Sasuke being a rogue ninja makes him fair game. I also believe that Yamato would be chosen to assist due to the history he has with Kakashi, in spite of his original purpose for being on Team 7, being a failsafe in case Naruto lost control of Kurama. Sakura was still going to save Kankuro, and Chiyo likely accompanies them to confront Sasori. With there being an extra team member there, I believe there's a greater chance that Yamato might be left behind to accompany Sakura and Chiyo in their battle against Sasori, and Sai would likely accompany Kakashi in his effort to take down Deidara. Originally, Deidara and Sasori, they broke up because Deidara was trying to provoke Naruto to make it easier to capture him, but given the fighting style that Deidara has and the fact that they were in a cave, I do believe that the duo, they do split up so as to better allow for Deidara to fight to his strengths. Kakashi having Sai there makes this a one-on-one battle of a sense because it's taken to the skies. And Sakura and Chiyo having Yamato there to assist them with wood release makes the fight a bit more interesting, with Yamato's wood release having both defensive protection as well as doubling his offensive and support role by being able to restrain a target, attack a target, and suppress chakra, which I think definitely comes in handy here. Ultimately, I believe that Sakura's team does take down Sasori with more difficulty, ironically, but where there is a major change is that I believe that Sai and Kakashi are also able to take down Deidara, partly because Kakashi will be flying on Sai's Inkbird, which has a comparable speed to Deidara's birds, and because he would be closer when it comes to using his Kamui Jutsu, that could be a game changer. So originally, when Kakashi used it in volume 31, he caught Deidara off guard and was attempting to snipe Deidara's entire body away, his upper body to be exact. But by his own words, he couldn't control the barrier or even control the size of the barrier. With him likely being at a closer distance, I think instead of just getting Deidara's arm, he takes a huge chunk of his upper body on the first attempt, and having Sai there likely cuts down on him having to try for a second attempt on Kamui. I think enough damage is done the first time. Also, given that Team Guy would have defeated their doppelgangers and there would not be a distraction in the form of Naruto losing control, Deidara would not be anywhere near successful in hiding now that he would have two Anbu and Kakashi and Sai plus Team Guy coming in on one side, and then you also have Chiyo, Yamato, and Sakura coming in on the other side because they arrived on the battlefield shortly after Naruto lost control as well in the original timeline. And you're adding Yamato to the Sasori and Sakura duo. So Deidara would never be able to find time to use his self-destruct shadow clone without getting caught. And that's assuming that being closer to Deidara via Sai's bird would not allow Kakashi to take more of his upper body than just his elbow. Between all of these heavy hitters that are there, I don't see Deidara being able to come out of this alive or even being given the opportunity to use his trump card C0. While the goal of battling the Akatsuki was to capture them alive, I do believe that Deidara does end up falling here just due to the firepower, though I will concede, and I do think it's kind of likely, Yamato's wood release does make it more likely that they can secure a condition where whatever remains of Deidara's upper body survives Kakashi's attempt to use Kamui, and he ends up getting restrained and he's not able to remove the stitching for C0. This would be a huge game changer after Chiyo revives Gaara, because Sakura would be armed with the intel about where Sasuke is supposed to be, that Sasori has a spy working with Orochimaru, and Konoha will have now captured a member of the Akatsuki, which that is huge. While Inoichi and Ibiki attempt to get intel out of Deidara, who likely has restraints and seals placed on his body to prevent him from blowing himself up, the new Team 7, they'll head out to seek out Sasuke. But given Sasuke is now considered a rogue ninja, I believe that Kakashi takes the same stance he did during the 5 Kage Summit, which is that he has to be the one to take down Sasuke in order to save him from that ninja system that failed Sasuke. I also believe that given this mission involves Orochimaru and Sasuke, Jiraiya, he would be added onto the team as well. And because Kakashi wouldn't have tried to attempt to use Kamui multiple times during that Deidara fight, I do believe that Kakashi is able to accompany this team. Where things get very interesting is the confrontation with Kabuto, which leads to Orochimaru popping up as well. A battle of Mangekyo Sharingan Kakashi, Yamato, Sai, and Sakura versus Kabuto and Orochimaru, it becomes one that gets heated very quickly. This version of Orochimaru, despite having a failing body, was able to hold his own against a rampaging Four Tails Naruto, though the battle did push him to his limit due to the body being in the process of rejecting him. Given Orochimaru is the bigger threat, I do believe that Orochimaru would face off against Kakashi, Yamato, and Jiraiya, while Sakura and Sai attempt to fight Kabuto. However, with Kabuto being comparable to Part 1 Kakashi, I do believe that while Sakura and Sai, both of whom were Jonin caliber shinobi at this point in the original timeline, even when accounting for Sakura being stronger in this timeline, I don't believe the duo is going to be able to take down Kabuto on their own, but any victory for Kabuto would likely be one of higher difficulty. Now, Kakashi and Yamato fighting alongside Orochimaru, I don't believe it's enough for them to defeat Orochimaru, especially since at this point Kakashi's Kamui is something that he can't use more than 2 times without getting extremely fatigued, and it also takes him a large amount of time to gather chakra for it. Even with Orochimaru being as limited as he is, that's a tough battle for Kakashi and Yamato, but I do think that they have more than enough time to buy time for Jiraiya to enter into Sage Mode, which makes this a very easy fight. The Frog Song Genjutsu is likely enough to take down Orochimaru and Kabuto, and at that point, it's a matter of trying to interrogate Kabuto on the location of the hideout since he's the weaker of the two, or simply moving ahead to try and scout the location. I do believe that the most likely option is that both Orochimaru and Kabuto remain captured, and due to Kabuto's prior training with Root, I don't think it'll be too easy for him to break the interrogation, but given how well hidden Orochimaru's hideout is, I don't think they'll be able to fully track down the location either. Even with Kakashi using dogs to try and pick up the scent, that would be very tricky, just given how the wind was blowing very hard at that point in time in the manga, as we know in volume 32. This makes any lingering scents less concentrated and harder to follow, and it should be worth noting that with the wind blowing as strong and as long as it did in the manga, particles from the original trail would be dispersed and harder to follow. Not saying it's unlikely for Kakashi's dogs to pick up the trail, but I don't think it is as likely given all of these factors that the manga had. This means that Sasuke, he'd ultimately come to the conclusion that, hey, Orochimaru and Kabuto, they never came back from me. Something must have happened, which means that Sasuke's likely going to take his plan to hunt down Itachi into effect a full 6 months sooner than it did in the original timeline. It's at this point that more changes occur to the timeline too. Both Orochimaru and Kabuto represent loose ends for Danzo, having Konoha eventually break Deidara, who we have zero evidence has any sorts of genjutsu blocks on his brain to prevent intel from leaking, which stands to reason he doesn't because not even Kisame had them. I believe while Konoha gets intel from all 5 of Deidara's brain cells, Danzo plays the 2 cards that he has left to play. The first is calling for the execution of Orochimaru for killing the 3rd Hokage and pushing it as something that needs to happen as soon as possible, which we know is because of his ulterior motives. He doesn't want Orochimaru to talk. And the second option is using his Anbu, likely a member of the Aburame clan, in order to poison him using the insects, and Kabuto in a way that doesn't draw any attention, and it avoids the Yamanaka clan from reading their memories and exposing his hand in covering up Orochimaru's child experiments and being the one behind Kabuto being a spy. Given all these stakes, I think the latter option is most likely, that Orochimaru and Kabuto, while they are chained up in prison, end up getting poisoned, which the death of both of them is absolutely insane. People like Tsunade, they might suspect Danzo of foul play, but they have zero evidence to back it up. This, of course, changes everything because the Akatsuki would know that Konoha had not only captured Deidara, but also killed Sasori and likely killed Orochimaru and Kabuto as well. It's alarming for Akatsuki since we know via volume 36 that Hidan was the only member of the group who didn't know the true goal of the Akatsuki. While he did name Tobi as someone who didn't know the truth, we all know that was due to Hidan and the others being unaware that Tobi was Obito and that Obito was the leader of the Akatsuki. This means the plans of which jinchuuriki were being hunted down by which duo, it will be open to Konoha as well as the Akatsuki's stated goal, according to Nagato, to collect money for their goal to make a much larger mercenary army of shinobi and then use the tailed beasts to control the war economy and war itself. However, Konoha wouldn't have as much time to begin acting due to Hidan and Kakuzu moving into the Land of Fire after they successfully take down the Two Tails and then collect Chiriku. Since the Akatsuki at the time was in the process of collecting money as well, this means that Konoha would have at the very least known the names of the various Akatsuki members, which gives them the opportunity to begin planning. With Naruto being dead in this timeline, you not only have Konoha on an active lookout for signs of the Nine Tails being resurrected, but Kakashi at this point would be put in one of the groups that were hunting down Hidan and Kakuzu, and that changes a lot. In my opinion, it is more likely that Kakashi has the exact same idea that Asuma had, which is to head to the Fire Temple. This would lead to Kakashi and whatever group of shinobi he has at his disposal working together to track down Hidan and Kakuzu, likely finding them even faster because Kakashi's ninja's hound would be able to pick up their scent from the temple itself. In Naruto chapter 318, Tsunade gathers exactly 90 shinobi and breaks them up into 20 teams of 4 to begin tracking down the Akatsuki duo. I believe that given this information, it's likely that this new version of Team 7 is kept together, though there's always an argument that can be made. Having 3 former Anbu on the team, it is overkill, and Tsunade is more likely to break them up, like how she didn't have Team 10 lumped in with Asuma on this mission. For the sake of argument, I do believe you have Kakashi and Sakura paired together and Yamato and Sai placed elsewhere. While Hidan and Kakuzu originally stayed in the Land of Fire to eventually track down Naruto, they are also staying to cash in on Chiriku's body at the bounty station, so the opportunity to catch them, it would still be there. The shinobi teams are likely to discover Hidan and Kakuzu as they head to the bounty exchange, but given the lack of intel this time, when Asuma fights Hidan, he's likely joined by Kakashi there, which drastically improves their chances in a 2 versus 1 battle, while also having someone as high Q as Sakura there to assist Shikamaru with strategy. However, the presence of Kakuzu, that changes a lot as well, because the moment he sees Kakashi on the battlefield, he's more likely to tell Hidan that he can take care of Asuma, but Kakuzu wants Kakashi. After all, Kakashi has a hell of a bounty. If this ends up being the case, which I think it will be, then Asuma would ultimately end up dying during this battle. However, I do believe that Kakashi is skilled and strong enough to give Kakuzu the fight for his life, since in the original timeline, a weaker version of Kakashi than the one we have now was capable of fighting Hidan and Kakuzu simultaneously while hard carrying Team 10. I think there's just enough there of a fight for Kakashi to survive fighting Kakuzu and even potentially taking out at least one of his hearts in a 1 versus 1 setting, which that's going to be amazing intel to have, that Kakuzu has more than one set of hearts that he can use. Now, when Pain orders the Akatsuki to retreat so as Hidan and Kakuzu can assist in sealing away the 2 and the 3 tails, I do believe things get tricky, and what we know is a 6-day period where they have to seal away the 2 and the 3 tails according to Naruto chapter 329, which I believe Obito would still have to face that trauma that comes from capturing the 3 tails, even if it means having to put up a farce and have Zetsu serve as his partner to do so, since Deidara is in Konoha captivity. Between them knowing the names of the Akatsuki, their powers, or at least some of their powers, and now someone like Jiraiya being made aware that the Akatsuki leader has a Rinnegan, the plot, it thickens even further. Sasuke as a rogue ninja, he's still a priority, but the chance to take down the Akatsuki is something that Konoha would not pass up, even though they technically don't have a jinchuuriki anymore. While Shikamaru has come up with this plan to kill Kakuzu and Hidan in order to avenge Asuma, you would see the walls beginning to close in on the Akatsuki. Sasuke taking his time, going from hideout to hideout, getting the members of Team Taka that he needs. Likely is gonna come to the conclusion that Orochimaru is dead, and Sasuke will begin moving forward with his plan to track down Itachi now that he has a team. Jiraiya would also know that the Akatsuki leader was operating out the Rain Village, and begin reviewing options on how to deal with a foe who possesses the Rinnegan, knowing that on his own, that would be too hard of a battle for him. By the time the Akatsuki finish sealing away the Three Tails, Sasuke will have collected the members of Team Taka, and they're in the process of hunting down Itachi. Kakashi joins Shikamaru and Team 10 alongside the new Team 7, Sakura, Yamato, and Sai. Since originally in the manga, Tsunade wanted a second team sent as backup to assist Team 10. This leads to a set of battles where Hidan does end up falling, but the battle against Kakuzu, it gets extremely out of hand very quickly. Yamato being there does allow for Kakashi to have some breathing room against Kakuzu, since Kakashi doesn't have to focus on saving Team 10 during that fight, and he can keep his guard up. Having Sai also capable of fighting from a distance and being able to use sealing jutsu comes in handy. Yamato being able to use wood release for support and defense, and also able for attack purposes, gives Kakashi an easier time, but it will be with extremely high difficulty that they destroy all of Kakuzu's hearts, because in the original timeline, Kakashi was reaching his breaking point even after Kakuzu had a couple of hearts destroyed already, but I think the team escapes without any major deaths. The losses, they continue to pile up for the Akatsuki as well, because Sasuke would be tracking Itachi and Kisame, and the Akatsuki in this timeline, they would be down to Pain, Konan, Zetsu, Obito, Kisame, and Itachi much sooner than they were in the original timeline. Jiraiya, knowing that the situation is going to call for him to deal with Nagato's Rinnegan, but not knowing that Pain has 6 different bodies, is likely going to cause him to head to the Rain Village, only this time with backup. In my opinion, that backup would likely be Kakashi once he's recovered from the Kakuzu fight. And even given the severity of the situation, I still believe Jiraiya would turn down Tsunade's offer to help him because of his concern about the village losing yet another Hokage and his warning about Danzo. While it's not ideal to risk a Kage candidate like Kakashi, I do believe the stakes being this high are enough to have Kakashi considered for this mission, even with there being rumblings about Sasuke forming his own team. While Kakashi has a duty to Sasuke because of the death of Naruto, providing Jiraiya with backup, it is higher up the food chain in terms of priorities. Instead, I think it's more likely that Kakashi has Yamato watch over Sakura, the last member of the original Team 7, and while Yamato led Team Kurenai and Team 7 to track down clues for Sasuke, the battle lines, they will be drawn. Sasuke is likely to find Itachi sooner, if for no other reason than Itachi wanting to settle things with Sasuke, even with this being a full 6 months sooner than Itachi had ever planned, meaning that Itachi isn't as sick as he once was. And meanwhile, Jiraiya would arrive in the Rain Village with Kakashi via Toad, and given that both are masters of disguise and espionage, once inside they find their way through the village gathering intel. The Akatsuki would have 2 battles going on simultaneously with key assets. Kakashi and Jiraiya, they make short work out of Konan, and with Kakashi there, the possibility of Sharingan Genjutsu to take her out, it is always on the table, which could lead to Pain showing up as well. You would also have a stronger Sasuke than in the original timeline, fighting against a sick Itachi. Again, 6 months away from dying, so theoretically he will be stronger. How much stronger remains to be seen. However, we'll start here, given that this fight is a lot closer than it was in the original timeline. So, as Obito stated, and as an unbiased reading of the manga will confirm for you, Itachi had more than one chance to kill Sasuke during their first fight, but he chose not to do it. In this timeline, this fight will be a lot closer. Due to Sasuke having more hatred in his heart, the Mangekyo Sharingan, and the 10 times multiplier, the Curse Mark, all working simultaneously, this Sasuke would actually go from being slightly stronger than Deidara, like he was when he first fought Itachi, to being arguably closer or potentially even stronger than Sage Mode Naruto, especially when you consider the 2.5 years worth of training, which I'm referring to Sage Mode Pain Arc Naruto. Sasuke likely would have thought to experiment at some point with using the Susanoo and Curse Mark combo, like we see when Jugo and Sasuke work together in the war, which that's another thing that Sasuke would have going for him. That's enough to make this a completely competitive fight and have sick Itachi ironically be on the defensive and die a more satisfied death at having seen how strong his brother had gotten. I also believe that due to Itachi's meticulous planning, he might have found a way to place Shisui's crow into someone like Sakura, even though Naruto's dead in this timeline. However, due to Sasuke being as strong as he is in this timeline, Sasuke never gets pushed to the point where Orochimaru can hijack his body, meaning that this version of Sasuke, he never loses his curse mark. I do believe that Obito would still approach Sasuke afterwards. No matter how much hate he has for Itachi, I still believe that Sasuke would lose himself for a moment and pass out due to the sheer overwhelming mental exhaustion that unfolds as a result of a battle like this. While this is going on, the battle of Kakashi and Jiraiya versus the Six Paths of Pain, it gets heated very quickly. With Kakashi there to provide backup, Jiraiya is able to get into Sage Mode easier, and given a dummy like Jiraiya was able to figure out the weaknesses of the Pains over time, having a genius like Kakashi leads this happening sooner, and given the handicap that Pain has by fighting in the Rain Village, I think there's a chance that the Six Paths of Pain are taken down given the options a Team Kakashi and Jiraiya will be able to use. That's a hell of a duo right there. I also believe that Jiraiya would be able to talk no jutsu Nagato, especially with Kakashi there. That of course leads to some major changes because this would be the first time that Kakashi would learn that the leader of the Akatsuki, the true leader, also has a Sharingan, only one Sharingan. And that means that the wheels, they would slowly start turning in his head that maybe some Uchiha who should be dead might be in possession of a Sharingan. The loss of Nagato and Konan, it would be huge for the Akatsuki, with Jiraiya taking them back to Konoha via the Toads and the duo being imprisoned willingly and handing over information about the Akatsuki that Deidara wasn't in possession of. This causes even more ripple effects in the timeline, huge ripple effects. Due to things being a whole 6 months sooner, the Four Tails would not have been caught, which means sticking to the story as we know it, only the 1 Tails, the 2 Tails, the 3 Tails, the 5 Tails, and the 7 Tails would be sealed away, with the last 2 having been sealed away during the 2.5-year time skip where the Akatsuki almost destroyed the statue. With Nagato tucked away inside of Konoha, more ripple effects are into play. Another ghost of Danzo's past, it is here. Jiraiya and Kakashi would have heard the story behind Yahiko's death, and that would be enough to have Tsunade place Danzo in confinement as well because of the acts of treason that he committed. Even with it being decades ago, Tsunade wouldn't be as soft on Danzo as the third Hokage was. Nagato being in Konoha also means that the village never gets destroyed by Pain. I do believe Obito would consider going the nuclear option while waiting for Sasuke to consider a transplant of Itachi's eyes to merge Itachi's chakra with Sasuke, since by this point in time, Sasuke, even if he used his Mangekyo Sharingan sparingly, he would need Itachi's eyes, and the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan has more power. I believe that Obito will begin weighing his options on what to do, and in a world without Naruto, he benefits in a major way. There is no Naruto Uzumaki there to make an impassioned speech to the Raikage to spare Sasuke. By this point in the timeline, the 4 Tails, the 6 Tails, and the 8 Tails, they are all uncaptured, and the 9 Tails may or may not have been revived since they don't have a direct timetable on how long that they need to resurrect. It can take anywhere from less than a year as we see in Boruto, and it can take up to 3 years as we saw in Naruto's anime. So it's also important to note that the 5 nations are not on good terms right now. They're still in an open Cold War. Gotta remember, Gaara in the main timeline tried to call a 5 Kage summit, and he got flat out ignored by everyone except for Konoha. Despite the other villages losing jinchuuriki at the time, and people like the Stone Village Kage wanted to keep the secret that they had previously employed the Akatsuki. it's more likely that the Kage, they don't mend fences here, especially without someone as over the top as the Raikage demanding a Kage summit. I do believe with the nation split, Obito makes a decision to infiltrate Konoha using Kamui. Even with Konan knowing how his powers work, even with Konoha having intel on it, with Nagato likely held in prison the same way that Sasuke was, limbs bound, ceiling tags on his Rinnegan, I don't see Konoha being able to stop Obito from teleporting into Konoha unnoticed since his chakras registered with the village, and he just kills whoever is guarding Nagato and Konan, and Obito kills a helpless Konan and a helpless Nagato. He takes back both of Madara's Rinnegan, instead moving to the backup plan that we know that he had in the manga, which was to have Sasuke used as the pawn to replace Nagato and have Sasuke sink to the Gedo statue and carry out the role that Nagato was supposed to play in Madara's plan. It honestly wouldn't take too much convincing for Sasuke, whose hate for the Leaf would run even hotter in this timeline, since not only would he learn of the betrayal that Itachi was forced to carry out as a part of the Uchiha massacre, but he'd also end up shifting blame from having to kill Naruto and Itachi onto the village, because those things are connected in the sense that had Sasuke ever known the truth, there's a chance that Itachi wouldn't be dead and that Naruto wouldn't be dead. Which, yes, that's irrational, but this Sasuke at this point in time wasn't the most rational person 100% of the time. His emotions did dictate him more than once, and that also made him easier to manipulate. The allure of having the power of the Rinnegan is something that would draw Sasuke in at this vulnerable part in his life, especially with the promise that in exchange for the Rinnegan, Obito will allow Sasuke to destroy Konoha after helping the Akatsuki with their Biju hunt, gaslighting this vulnerable Sasuke to say that the shinobi system is why Itachi did what he did, and that the Biju system, it played a role in Naruto dying without family, much like how most of the jinchuuriki faced that same fate. They died alone. It will be at this point the remaining Biju are easily captured by Sasuke, Kisame, Team Taka, and Obito, including the Nine Tails, which Sasuke would personally capture when it respawned. It's at this point that the unspoken measures that Obito and Zetsu had in place to take control of Nagato to force him to revive Madara, that will be used, only this time it will be done on Sasuke. After Sasuke falls dead after being forced to use the Rinne Rebirth, Madara would quickly kill the members of the Akatsuki who stood against him. And on one fateful night, while Hinata is placing a cup of ramen at Naruto's grave, she'd turn around, twiddling her fingers, looking up at the moon with the Sharingan on top of it, and she'd be swept into a perfect dream world where she meets Naruto alive yet again. It would be at this point that Madara would be on his I'm the main character energy, that Zetsu, he would turn on Madara and Kaguya would be revived. While this what if did end on a negative light, not all of them end with the bad guys winning. Like this what if here on the right that goes over what if Naruto learned the flying Raijin, or if you're feeling very brave, you can check out the other videos in the Naruto What If playlist. Though as always, remember, no character is safe when we ask the question, what if?